This is Grace, or Amazing Grace, as she is known by her more than 6,000 Facebook friends in at least 15 countries around the world. They have followed her journey from near death, day by day, from injuries she sustained on a Florida daycare playground back in November 2013. Grace, left with disabilities from her injuries, now faces another life and death struggle with the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Department, battling for her very life that she fought so hard to save. This is her story. In Florida, in November 2013, Reba and Tommy Morse, who had lived in the state of Florida for more than 25 years, had worked with the rehabilitation of wildlife throughout their entire lives. Working with local animal control, veterinary offices, and city workers, Reba and Tommy took in, rehabilitated, and returned to the wild squirrels, birds, and other small animals. In their rehab efforts, they have cared for and released over 300 squirrels and countless birds after tending to their medical and nutritional needs. Reba and Tommy strongly believe in animal rehabilitation and to their return to the wild. On November 18, 2013, Reba and Tommy Morse, then residents of Marion County, Florida, were asked by their veterinarian to take in a squirrel who had been severely injured. The squirrel's head was trapped in a heavy toy Tonka truck, similar to this one. Struggling for her life and unable to free herself, she was left on the playground in the blazing Florida summer heat by day and in thunderstorms by night, without food or water, for 2 to 3 days. Weak, severely dehydrated, and near death, the squirrel was finally taken by someone to the veterinarian, who had to cut the truck from her now severely mangled, swollen head and neck. While trying unsuccessfully to free herself from the toy truck, the squirrel, later known as Grace, sustained multiple severe injuries, including very deep cuts and lacerations around her neck, head, ears, and shoulders, a collapsed lung, and permanent partial vision and hearing loss. She broke several toes attempting to pull herself free from the truck, and her ears were ripped so severely that as the tissue became necrotic and died, maggots infested her ears, and chunks of her ear flaps later fell off from her body. The veterinarian asked Reba and Tommy to take in the squirrel and give her any care they could. Her condition was critical. Day and night, without rest and around the clock, Reba cleaned and dressed the squirrel's wounds, tried to administer fluids via syringe, and tried to soothe the weak squirrel through the nights by rocking with her, softly singing Amazing Grace, the origin of her name. It was unclear for quite some time if the squirrel would succumb to her extensive injuries, but as long as the squirrel did not give up, Reba did not give up. On their public Facebook page, Reba and Tommy shared the story of this terribly injured squirrel and her struggle to survive the extent of her injuries, and soon, from the songs sung rocking while through the nights and the valiant efforts this little squirrel made to live despite all she had been through, her Facebook followers named the little squirrel Amazing Grace. Weeks later, once Grace was stabilized, Reba and Tommy took her to the University of Florida Veterinary School to determine if she would be releasable. Grace's more than 6,000 Facebook followers raised money and helped pay for her medical care, as they had done with other animals Reba and Tommy rehabilitated and helped. After extensive medical care and evaluation at the University of Florida Veterinary School, it was determined Grace suffered permanent disabilities and would be a non-releasable animal. Reba and Tommy took Grace back to their Marion County, Florida home and began the process of socializing her to try to give her the best captive life possible. Through continued care, Grace quickly became part of their family. It is important at this point to note, in the state of Florida, it is completely legal for Reba and Tommy Morse to provide a home and care for squirrels. Through their Facebook page, which features mostly special needs animals, Reba and Tommy seek to inspire and to teach about kindness and how to care for those special animals who might need a little extra help. While still in Florida, Reba completed the application process for full rehab permits, passing the exam with a score of 98%. While she was awaiting cage inspections in order to be granted full permits, unfortunately, in the world of social networks, there are those who seek to do harm and damage to others through cyberbullying and stalking. Reba became the target of an ongoing campaign of bullying, jealousy, stalking, and vindictiveness. On the cusp of receiving her permits after the upcoming cage inspection, these bullies, themselves rehabbers in Florida, reacting to all of the support Reba, Tommy, and Grace received, not only harassed Reba through private Facebook messages, but also made it their mission, despite her high scores, to block her permits by repeatedly complaining to the Florida Wildlife Department that a woodpecker was being rehabilitated without the proper permit, as well as submitting false accusations. Reba was not aware rehabilitation for the woodpecker required a special permit, so she paid the citation and did community service. At this time, Reba verified having Grace and 2 flying squirrels met all legal guidelines. They were legally considered as pets. Once this was established, they had no fears of moving their entire family, including Grace and the 2 flying squirrels, with them to a new home. In the spring of this year, Reba and Tommy Morse relocated to Bibb County, Alabama, where Reba was raised, while still maintaining their other home in Marion County, Florida. On July 30th, a wildlife officer from Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries came to the Morse home. Again, repeated complaints were made by the cyberbullies and stalkers, who went so far as to do a national title search for the addresses of all properties owned by Reba and Tommy Morse, to Alabama Wildlife Freshwater Fisheries, complaining that they had squirrels. In an open letter on Facebook to Cam Ward, Alabama State Senator, Reba Morse stated, quote, "On July 30th, a wildlife officer came to our home advising he was told to check out a complaint that we had squirrels. We also had 2 flying squirrels that were being prepared for release. After looking at the animals and their environment, the officer told us he would need to report all of this back to his supervisor, and if we didn't hear back from him within a couple of days, just forget about it, as this would be a closed case. I asked about rehabbing in Alabama, and he gave me the name of the person to contact in this region for licensing. I called right after the officer left and had a very productive conversation with this man. He advised he was in the process of drafting new applications and would like to have me work with small animals such as squirrels and birds, as he already had someone in Jefferson County to take care of rabies vector animals such as raccoons, and he didn't feel I had enough property to handle deer. He asked me to be patient as he had to complete the forms and would send them along with the caging requirements. I asked what else I needed to do to become certified, and he said as long as I could meet the caging requirements, he would grant me the license, as he is the one to make the final decision." Reba and Tommy awaited next steps. Unquote. On August 26th, without warning, the same game warden appeared at their locked gate with another officer. Quote, "We gladly opened the gates in our home as we thought they were here to help us with the next steps of the licensing process. Once inside, he gave me a document on a plain white paper stating I was in violation of several laws by having these animals and I must turn them over to them now or suffer criminal prosecution." Unquote. Grace, who is very fragile, and the 2 flying squirrels were seized by the Alabama Wildlife Freshwater Fisheries Department. No warrant was presented, just a plain white paper, not even on official letterhead. The head of the department told Reba he, quote, "did her a favor by choosing not to arrest her for criminal prosecution," unquote, and that she, quote, "should be thankful that he did not uphold the laws he was supposed to and arrest her," unquote. In response to a campaign to bring Grace home, which has shed light on the department, Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries has publicly stated it is now looking into any possible federal charges of the Lacey Act it may bring against Reba Morse. The officers refused to tell Reba and Tommy where they took Grace and the two flying squirrels, only that they would be left with and evaluated by a rehabber to determine if they are considered releasable. Reba and Tommy were informed that if Grace is deemed non-releasable due to her disabilities by their agency, the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Department prefers to euthanize Grace rather than allow her to return to her home to live for years to come and to be cared for with her special needs. The circumstances of this case warrant special attention before it is too late for Grace. Reba and Tommy Morse have been repeatedly denied any information about Grace and the flying squirrel's condition or whereabouts. They have only been told that, so far, Grace and the flying squirrels have not yet been euthanized. Since the officer who came into the Morse home on July 30th left the animals in Reba and Tommy's care at that time, indicating the case would be closed within days, it is unclear why the harsh seizure of Grace, a disabled squirrel, and the two flying squirrels was carried out a month later. Was it in response to the continuous complaints from the bullies who have stalked and harassed Reba for more than 1.5 years? Grace's Facebook followers have mounted a campaign to help save Grace and bring Grace home. They have flooded the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries email and phone lines, contacted media outlets, animal rights organizations, the governor of Alabama, state senators, and local politicians, and started an online petition. Reba has stated, if needed to release Grace and the two flying squirrels, she will not pursue the wildlife permitting process if the state of Alabama does not want her help, and will agree not to take in any other non-domestic animals in the future. But, for Grace's safety, she needs to come home. This story has been sent all over the world by Grace, Reba, and Tommy's Facebook family, with members in at least 15 other countries, as well as every state. Just like in November 2013, when Grace did not give up and Reba did not give up on her, Grace's Facebook followers have vowed not to give up until she is released and safely back in the care of Reba and Tommy Morse. Now, Grace's life is in dire jeopardy once more, senselessly threatened by Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries. She fought so hard to live despite her injuries and resulting disabilities. Again, she faces a fight for her life. Reba only wants to save her life yet again and to provide care so Grace may live in peace. Please help save Grace from senseless euthanization by the Alabama Wildlife and Freshwater Fisheries Department. Please help Grace have the care she needs and the life she deserves. Grace does not deserve to die. Please help us stand up against cyberbullies and stalkers who would try to bring harm to innocent animals with special needs and to those who care for them. Please help us save Grace's life. Please help bring Grace home. Thank you.